Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. Tonight, we'll be looking at the topic burnout prevention and resilience building. My name is Yemi Adeosun, and I am not the facilitator for today. I'm just a colleague of the facilitator. Our facilitator is Martha Igbinoba, and she's a first-time presenter on this prestigious platform. We are very happy to have her join us, share with us from our wealth of knowledge and experience. And I would like to read our profile very quickly. Martha Igbinoba is an impact-driven human resource professional with a couple of years' experience in strategic HR management, workforce development, and talent acquisition. She is passionate about people, processes, and creating meaningful workplace experience. And she brings a unique blend of empathy, innovation, and strategic thinking to every team she supports. Martha holds a bachelor's degree in information and computer systems from Benson Idauza University, Benin. Since transitioning into human resources, she has worked across various sectors supporting startups, outsourcing firms, and NGOs, where she has successfully led recruitment campaigns and fostered employee relations. Ladies and gentlemen, in addition to her work, HR work, she's passionate about advocating for inclusivity and well-being in the workplace. And she volunteers with NGOs, mentors job seekers, and actively supports individuals who stutter. Ladies and gentlemen, she tries to help them navigate employment opportunities with confidence and dignity. Whether she is facilitating recruitment drives, engaging with stakeholders, or developing HR strategies, Martha approaches every task with integrity, thoughtfulness, and a clear drive to make a lasting impact. Speaking to us on the topic, burnout prevention and resilience building, I'm excited, delighted to present to us Martha Igbinoba. You have the floor, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Doctor, for this opportunity. I don't take this for granted. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for showing up. It's a pleasure to be here in your midst to discuss this interesting topic. And I'm looking forward to us having an engaging and insightful section. So during the course of this meeting, I'll look at the chat box, and please feel free to drop your comments, your contributions will be welcome, very much welcome towards the end of this meeting. So let's dive right into the business of today. So for today, we're talking about burnout prevention and resilience building. So we're going to look at what's our objectives today. We're going to, by the end of the session, you will understand burnout and the effects of burnout, the impact it has on HR, on organizations. We'll identify early signs and symptoms of burnout. We're going to explore practical, cost-effective ways to prevent burnout. And we'll also find out if you are burnt out, towards the end of this meeting. And we're going to learn how to build resilience without overextending yourself. And we'll discover self-care strategies tailored for HR professionals. And what we'll cover today, we're going to cover understanding burnout, how to identify burnout, practical strategies to prevent burnout, managing burnout, building resilience without burnout, and the role of self-care in burnout prevention. So, what is burnout? Burnout is a state of emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion caused by prolonged workplace stress without adequate coping strategy. When I saw this topic is something that is very dear to my heart, and it's very, very personal to me because it's not just something that I've researched or, trained others on. Is I've experienced burnout firsthand. So I'm not going to be speaking as someone who understands the theory of burnout. I'm speaking as someone who has lived it, someone who has felt it, someone who is still navigating the ripple effect of burnout. And I've also seen people, employees, I've seen managers experience burnout, from afar and close by. I didn't know it was going to come to meet me. So in my own case, what started off as just headaches, turned into chronic pain, excessive painkiller use, and it got into low blood pressure, insomnia, fainting spells, and I have a lovely scar on my ankle from one of the blackout episodes I have. So burnout is real. So I don't want us to have a health scare. Before we start to do the needful, we need to prioritize, our health and prevent these things because, in safety, they say safety first. And I'm going to be laying so much emphasis on HR because as HR, I would say we are the organizational sacrificial lamb, and so we tend to touch base, we tend to respond swiftly to employee conflicts, we tend to, and we at our own expense. So most times we forget ourselves. So I'm going to lay emphasis on HR professionals because I've seen employees, I've seen experienced professionals, burnouts. Burnouts can affect anyone, no matter your position and your level of responsibility within an organization. And the thing is, burnout just it slips in slowly. Oftentimes cleverly disguised as dedication, productivity. Just one more task. So, and burnout is something that is often misunderstood. It's not just about being tired or being overworked. It's about that prolonged dis. Okay, so we're talking about burnout. That burnout is often misunderstood, and it's not just about being tired or being overworked. It's about that prolonged disconnection from joy, from motivation, and sometimes from yourself. And in the HR space where emotional labor is just like part of our JD, burnout often just hides. So for today, we're going to talk about the fact how to prevent this burnout so we don't get to that point of, extreme habitual burnout. That's like the stages of burnout. We're going to cover that. So that at the end of the day, I want us to take, I want us to be not, I don't want us to be docile about our health as HR. Because if we don't take active steps to prevent burnout, your body eventually will force you to stop. And usually that way it involves, hospital bills and, and all that. And the psychologist Herbert Freudenberg, made published an early research in 1974, and he said that dedicated and the committed are the most prone to burnout. So sometimes workaholics like us, we experience this burnout, and burnout is different from stress. Stress is like a short-term reaction, like more like a low battery, you know. But burnout is like that prolonged state of exhaustion, like when your battery is completely flat. So I want to ask ourselves, when last did you prioritize your own well-being with the same urgency you address workplace issues, because oftentimes as we are taking care of employees, the question is who takes care of HR? Who takes care of HR? Would you say God? So we're going to talk about, next we're going to talk about the signs of burnout, symptoms of burnout, and we'll do a test, an assessment on the next slide on how to find out your burnout level during the course of this. So the causes of burnout, what causes burnout? Burnout can be caused by excessive, workload. It can be caused by unrealistic work expectations. You're trying to meet up with deadlines, there are heavy workloads that exceed your capacity. Those are the root causes of burnout. Other thing that can cause burnout is lack of that work-life balance. So difficulty in like prioritizing your personal needs over your work responsibilities. Burnout could also be caused by poor management, being that undervaluing, feeling undervalued, micromanaging, or lack of support from leadership. A toxic workplace too could also cause burnout. And sometimes this competition, conflict, lack of transparency, can also cause burnout, where employees feel undervalued, they feel unacknowledged, And also another thing that can cause burnout is this lack of autonomy. In some organizations, where they are that limited, there's limited decision making power, in roles, and also unfair treatments could also cause burnout, or also role ambiguity can cause it in a situation whereby the JDs, the job descriptions are unclear. So there are unclear job descriptions, unclear expectations, and unclear responsibilities. A situation whereby you are hired as, for instance, a customer service rep, and you're having to be involved in marketing, you are involved in procurement, you're involved in other things that were not clearly stated in your JDs and stated on you as your KPI. So such a thing can cause and also inadequate resources, where there are shortage of tools. Those things can cause burnout. So, and we're going to talk about the signs as well. The next slide. I hope we are seeing my slides. We're going to talk about the signs of burnout, the symptoms of burnout, basically how to identify burnout and the stages of burnout. Okay.
We can see your slides, Matter.
You can see my slide. Maybe I'm having a network hit as my side. I'm trying to move the
What is
slides.
showing right now is what causes burnout. That's what is showing.
Okay, we're supposed to be okay. I'm looking at, are you burnt out? How to identify
Uh,
burnout. So, but we'll answer this towards
yes,
the
that's
course
what
of the
is showing
course of
now.
the session. So the question is, yes, is your work emotionally exhausting? I'll check the chat box for this response. Is your work emotionally exhausting? So on the scale of 0 to 5, please let us know your score. Then at the end of the day, we'll talk about it. And do you feel burnt out because of your work? Does your work frustrate you? Do you feel worn out at the end of the working day? Are you exhausted in the morning at the thought of another day at work? Do you feel that every work hour is just tiring for you? Do you have enough energy for your family and friends during leisure time? So please, on the scale of 0 to 5, put down your scores. We'll discuss this towards the end of this session. So
So
let's move to
just to
signs and
hello, Matter.
symptoms.
Just stay on that for a
Yes,
bit,
sir.
Matter. Please stay on that slide. So, ladies and
Okay, this
gentlemen,
slide.
I'm Matters assistant.
Okay.
So, what you will do, for example, if you are responding to question 1, so you write either, so if your answer is 0, you write 1.0. If your answer is 5, 1.5. Why are you writing 1.0 or 1.5? So that we'll know that the first one is question 1, and then the other number is it 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you are responding to question 2, so it will be either 20 till or 25 till you get to the end of the question. Do you get that? So I'd like us to respond to all the 8 questions. You can see me now. I've responded to 3 of the questions, and I intend to respond to the remaining on the chat box. Okay? And do you feel worn out at the end of the working day? I've answered
Does
that
your
one.
work frustrate you?
Question 5. Are you exhausted in the morning? Question 6. Do you feel that every working hour is tiring for you? Do you have enough energy for family and friends? That's question 7. Please, let's respond to the questions. Thanks to, I can see Shola Ajayemi, thanks for your feedback. Thanks, Victor Agu. If your hands are not busy, too busy, please let's respond. Over to you, Mata.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for that. Okay. So can I move to the next slide, sir? Permission to move to the next slide.
A few more seconds. People are still responding.
Okay, they're
Blessing,
still
Joe just
responding.
responded,
Okay.
yes. It's
Okay.
a very good
Okay.
exercise, actually. This is practical.
Yes, sir. So question one is your work emotionally exhausting? Do you feel burnout because of your work? Does your work frustrate you? Do you feel worn out, at the end of the working day? Are you exhausted in the morning and at the thought of another day at work? Do you feel that every day, every working hour is tiring for you? Do you have enough energy for your family? Because this is very important. This is how you know whether you're burnt out or not. Let me look at the chat box. So at the end of this, you add up your score. So we know where you are. Then I'll share the range with us. Is anyone done? Let me check the chat box. Okay, please, I forgot to mention, can we add it up? At the end of the day, add up the score. Okay, I can see 2.324. Okay, please, can we add up the scores? Let's know the sum total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 7. So the goal is to add up the score. Then we know where you are. So there's a range. There's a range of 10 to 20. So I'll know, okay, where you are. Because in the chat box, I'm seeing 1.323. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm seeing a 25. Okay. I can see an 11. Wow, you're doing well. I can see 16. Thank you so much, Prince. 16. I can see a 25 as well. Okay, we'll talk about that. We'll discuss further on the scores towards the end of this much later. So let's dive right into the business of the day. So we're discussing signs and symptoms of burnout. So how do you know someone that is burnt out? Because sometimes you can't tell. Like when I experienced mine didn't even show my performance. So we'll talk about the symptoms of the signs of burnout. So there are physical indicators like chronic fatigue or exhaustion, increased aptism, persistent colds, general physical complaints, sleep disturbances. Those are the physical indicators. We also have emotional and cognitive signs. This one, I've seen it a lot. This emotional exhaustion, increased irritability, are just irritated, decreased sense of accomplishment, increased sensitivity to criticism and decision fatigue, mental fog. These are the signs of burnout. And we have behavioral signs. So for these signs, you're withdrawn from social interactions. You go out on a team bonding activity and you're just withdrawn. Avoiding work-related tasks, becoming cynical, decreased communication and responsiveness, missing deadlines, at a higher average rate, than usual. These are the symptoms and signs of burnout. Also, but on performance, sometimes you notice that someone's performance is dropping. A hypo is just beginning to drop and you're concerned. You notice frequent mistakes, incompletion of projects on time, low engagement levels. These are the signs of burnout, and it's very important for us to pay attention to these signs. We're also going to talk about, this is where I'm going to really spend time on the phases of burnout. That's the stages. You have the honeymoon phase of burnout, you have the onset of stress, you have the chronic stress, and you have the burnout and the actual habitual burnouts. So you see, in this honeymoon stage is a very interesting stage. It's a stage whereby you just, what you feel is this: you feel pure passion. You're productive, you are driven, and you're ready to change, the whole world. And I'll give you example of that as we progress. And then we have the onset of stress. So in this stress, small tasks just feels overwhelming, and you forget whether you forget so many things. You send a mail and you're just going back to check, did I attach that particular file, and then you become exhausted mentally. So you skip meals, you dread Monday meetings, your to-do list becomes, mentally exhausting for you. And occasionally you could experience things like headaches, anxiety, and a decline in focus. And then we have the chronic stress. In this chronic stress, this is here you see frustration. Your irritability becomes like the norm, and you just get to a point that you're avoiding calls in this stage, and you get easily annoyed. You're no longer enjoying, if you enjoyed helping people, here, you just want to be withdrawn, and you keep at this stage, you question your competence at this chronic stage. And then you have the burnout stage. In this stage, you are physically and mentally drained. So decisions here are hard, and your self-esteem is, you have low self-esteem at this stage. You cancel plans at this burnout stage, and you're constantly having that headaches, insomnia. You begin to feel hopelessness, you begin to feel that disconnect I mentioned earlier. And then we have the habitual burnouts. This one is very dangerous. So mine wasn't a habitual burnout. I mentioned earlier that I experienced burnouts. That's why I was very particular about this particular topic. So this habitual burnout is, you are just completely withdrawn, and you ignore professional responsibilities, you stop responding to calls, emails, you lose interest literally in everything, activities that you once loved, that you found, fulfilling. So let me give you examples of these different stages so we can really understand it. From the first stage, let me go to, okay. Okay, so this is the honeymoon phase. So for this phase, we have a Farida. So Farida just joined a growing tech company as a HR manager. She's excited about implementing new recruitment strategies, and employee engagement initiatives. So despite the large volume of hiring requests, she stays at the office until 8 p.m., organizing candidates' profiles and preparing for interviews. And her enthusiasm is evident. And she tells her colleagues, like, I'm building the perfect, onboarding program. And even when her boss, adds compensation reviews to her responsibilities, this stage, she just eagerly accepts it, believing that, what, she can handle everything with her positive attitude and strong work ethic. So I don't know how many of us are Faridas here. And then you have fun. By the way, this is me. This is when I think right here I had not I found it difficult to sleep. I had insomnia. So for like 4 days I didn't sleep. So, and this is the fun. This is the onset stress phase. She's an HR coordinator handling recruitment for multiple branches. Notices she's becoming increasingly forgetful, that she recently mixed up, interview schedules and sent the wrong offer letter to a candidate. The excitement of this her role is fading as she struggles with the volume of applicants and pressure from department heads to fill the positions quickly. So she starts experiencing tension headaches, but she dismisses them, telling them this is just part of working in HR during expansion. You see, at this stage, it's like burnout is like it's like a drip. It steeps in slowly until it blows out of proportion. So this is how my own started. Mine started like this. I just started having headaches. I just felt it's part of I'm a workaholic. It's known. I find it very difficult to draw that boundary. I just felt okay. It's part of the job. That's how I kept taking painkillers till I got to the point of having insomnia and low blood pressure. And then this is a chronic phase that I talked about. This chronic phase here, this is Tunde. Tunde is an employee relations specialist. He finds himself emotionally drained, you know, after months of mediating increasingly tense union negotiations during company downsizing. And he has developed to the point that he developed a short temper with colleagues and family. And so his previously detailed documentation has become sloppy, and he begins avoiding difficult conversations with employees by communicating only through email, to the point that his wife has commented that he seems perpetually distracted and irritable even during weekend family gatherings. I don't know who is it Sunday here in our midst. And then we have Adesua. This is the burnt out phase. So for Adesua used to pride herself on being the heart of the HR department at a tech firm in Lagos. So now, as an employee sits across the desk, describing a difficult situation with their manager, she just keeps nodding automatically, while her mind wanders. So, what do you think I should do? The employee asks. So snapping at this one back, because she's absent-minded, and she's like, let me think about this and get back to you, she says, adding another item to her mental list that she knows she may never address. So at lunch, instead of joining colleagues, in the canteen, she sits in the car in the parking garage, just relishing the silence and dreads returning to her desk. And that evening, she opens her empty refrigerator and orders takeouts for the fourth time that week, too drained to shop or cook. So as she eats the jollof rice straight from the container, she notices that she has an unwashed clothes, that is piled up, that's been sitting at the corner over a week. So you can imagine, and she's like, tomorrow I would, handle it. So that's another case, example of the burnout phase. And then we have the when you are outrightly burnt out, that's the habitual burnout phase. So we have here Fumi. So over here, Fumi hasn't taken a proper lunch break in years. As the head of HR compliance at a telecommunications company in Kano, she's known for working through weekends and holidays, to the point that even when younger colleagues suggest she takes time off, this particular part I got to take breaks and leave was an issue for me. That's we'll talk about that later. So when younger colleagues suggest she takes time off after her recent hospitalization for stress related exhaustion, she just waves it away. She's like, this report won't write itself, she says with a humorless laugh. So during the employee orientation, you know, a fresh graduate asks about work-life balance, and she pauses. As you can see her face, she pauses and she says, in this HR, balance is a luxury we can't afford. If you must, move further, advance in your career, you have to pay the price of working hard, and the reward for hard work is more work, And so later, her sister calls, concerned after not hearing from her for weeks, and she's just like, I'm fine. I'm just busy, you know. So Fumi insists, even as she feels that familiar tightness in her chest that preceded her last hostel visits, she's just like, this is how the job is like this. I have made peace with it, she says, though the resignation in her voice suggests otherwise. So I don't know how many Fumis are here. So you see, this burnout has impacts, on employees, on businesses and organizations generally. So for productivity, you see that you see reduced focus or concentration. You notice decreased quality of work in some cases, and you could notice that persistent errors, missed deadlines, and you notice that reduction in efficiency. And also, it also affects the workplace morale, whereby you see some contagious negative attitude from employees. You notice that for this deterioration of team dynamics, what I mean here is you discover when, I don't know how many of us have noticed, when people in a team, you notice that people in a team are no longer getting along, like they used to. It's one of the impacts of burnout. And of course, that increased workload for team members is also one of the impacts of burnout. And yes, burnout has impact on finance because there are financial losses from rework, from missed deadlines, from decreased customer satisfaction, customer experiences, and even turnover. So we're going to talk about strategies. How can we know burnout is real? We acknowledge that it's real. So how do we reduce? We cannot completely eradicate burnout. So how can we reduce burnout as an organization? So we're going to talk about that. I'll also talk about how we can reduce burnout as HR. I'm very particular about, because a lot of times we forget ourselves. So in order to reduce this burnout, we need to train managers to recognize burnout in the first place, in the first instance. That is one way of, you know, tackling burnout. Because in my case, I'm very observant. When I noticed maybe someone, I happen to work in a consulting firm where we're handling HR functions of different organizations, different sectors. And so we had the hospitality. I think maybe someday I'll do a research on it, which industry experiences this more often. So in handling the hospitality, so there was a situation whereby you're going to touch base and you notice someone is just hissing, an employee is just, hissing. That's like a sign, having that interaction with them. So I had an instance whereby someone was just hissing. So I just walked in and I just had to ask her what happened, what is going on, and she broke down. I had another instance where I had a friend, a group. Towards the beginning, I mentioned that burnout is no respecter of persons or positions or your responsibility, because I've seen managers, I've seen C-suite executives burn out, honestly. And I didn't know that it's just a matter of time. It will come to me. I've had people, there was someone I called, group head of HR. I called him to check up on him. So while I called him, I was like, I just asked, how are you? How are you doing? And his response was, you know what? I need to go home. I need to go home and just look at the ceiling. I'll just look at the ceiling. That felt, awkward. I was like, someone is just going to look at the ceiling. So he said, like, thank you for calling me. I'm going home to look at the ceiling. I became worried. And 2 days after, I called to check up and I followed up. And he was like, I actually went home to look at the ceiling. I was just joking. I was like, I hope say commit suicide. I was afraid. And he was like, I think I just need to take a break. And during the course of that, I think because it was a weekend, I think he had an outburst that resulted in one of his employees, dropping resignation by Monday. So you can imagine those are the impacts, the effects of burnout. So I was able to recognize it. He was able by just asking, how are you doing? So it's very important for us to train managers on how to even recognize this burnout. And it's also important to set realistic goals and delegate effectively. And above all, also making wellness a KPI for leadership, in addition to leading by example. This is also very, very essential. So we're going to look at. So I hope I'm not running too fast. Are we following? We're going to look at as HRs. I'm very particular about HR. Like I mentioned, I see us like we are the organizational sacrificial lamb. So we're going to talk on how we can reduce burnout for ourselves because we can't pour. Obviously, we can't pour from an empty cup. So as individuals, how to prevent burnout? We need to set boundaries. It's so key. We need to set boundaries like our life, depends on it because actually it does. We need to schedule time for joy. I had one of my bosses would say, schedule your joy. It's very important. And we need to practice mindfulness. Mindfulness practice. That's by paying attention to our inside, our inner mind, so that we don't exceed our threshold, so that okay, you know what, I need to take a break. It's very, very important. And there are applications, there are apps that can help us with that. There are apps like we have Milk app. Milk is an app, it helps for that. We also have apps like Smiling Mind is also a mindfulness tool that we can use. That one reminds you to drink water, reminds you to eat, and all that. Then there is Zero Ab. That one is for intermittent fasting if you want to, lose weight. And we also have this the app they call Reflecting. So it helps you as well. And we have we have Fabulous app as well. So these are tools that can help with, mindfulness. We also have, when I remember them, I would share them as we progress. So and we need to, we need to check, know our numbers. We need to prioritize our health. This is so important that if you don't take anything out of this session, just take prioritizing your health, being intentional. We can't be docile about our health because you sit down for hours, and we have this sedimentary lifestyle. So we need to be intentional. Go for checkups. Don't wait until you have health scares, you know, and don't wait until you collapse before you know your numbers. Because this life, you only live it once. There was a few months ago, I was working on a project and I noticed the project's lead, the first day, she was just popping a pill. Those things, I just noticed she was just taking, I had to ask, I was inquisitive. I was like, hope you're okay. She was like, okay, I'm fine. You know, the next day again, she said, I'm fine. Just a slight headache the first day. The next day, I noticed she was popping another pill. And I had to ask her, hope all is well. The third day again, she was popping another pill. And out of concern, I was just like, I just went to meet her. I was like, you know what? Even doctors say, consult your doctors, symptoms persist after, is it 3 days they say? So I told her, you need to watch it. You can't just be taking painkillers. You need to know your numbers. Have you checked your blood pressure? Do you know your BMI? It's very important because you just keep walking, going on and on, thinking that all is well. So, and I had to ensure I do it a lot. I do it to employees. I do it to my bosses. I just post them. You need to check your blood pressure. I had an instance last year whereby we're having a meeting with the clients And he walked into the building. As soon as he sat down, because I'm very observant, I've seen people slum, so I think it's a norm for me to be able to identify these things. So he sat down. While he sat down, I looked at him and I signaled my MD. I went to her and I told her, "Do you mind? Can we reschedule? That I don't think this man is really okay." And she just looked at me. So I just told her, we wouldn't want someone collapsing in our facility. She knew how serious it was, and I had to meet the our client. I told him, "Sir, do you mind having a check? Do you mind? We could get you a doctor. It's just a stone's throw, just a call away. Just let's just check. Hope you don't mind? We can always reschedule this. Your health is more important." And he was just like, you know, what is it? Let's just get this meeting done with. I have other meetings. So I was like, your health is more important than this meeting. We had to put a call to a doctor. They came around and they checked his blood pressure, they checked his vital, and guess what? He was put on bed rest. You know what that means? So imagine if he had just busy attending meetings, going from meetings to meetings, and he couldn't even come the next day. We had that meeting like about 3 days after. So it's very, very important for us to prioritize our health. Work out. Don't no excuses. Don't say, okay, I can't afford gym. So I can't I don't have time. You need to create time for that, for rest, for exercise. It's very, very important. I hope everyone is following. It's very important because our health is without if it's only when you are alive that you can pursue your career. So it's very important for us to prioritize our health. So we'll move to the next slide. We're talking about, we're going to talk more on resilience, how to build resilience. You see, in between burnouts, when there's burnout and there's recovery. So in between burnout and recovery is a skill called resilience. And resilience doesn't mean, overworking yourself. Sorry, I don't know. Can we see my slide?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Sorry, sir. Wait, what is showing?
Organizational strategies to reduce burnout. Is the slide experiencing burnout?
I'll be so dis. I'm telling you, the more money the husband gave her, that was how she put it in MMM and she lost. So that thing is very.
Wow. Is it my network or Galiu's network? Can we hear Aliu still?
We can't hear him anymore.
Dangerous. Very, very dangerous.
Okay. Okay. And I'm
Hello.
enjoying what you say. Yeah, we can hear you now. We lost you in the last 30 seconds. You may want to recap. So you are mentioning that your colleague was, participated in MMM back then. The money for our family upkeep, she invested it and it went down the drain. So how are you able to maybe assist her or support her? Or how are you able to support her?
Yeah, what I did was that because she couldn't even tell her husband. So I was the one that now called the husband, discussed with him, and I just booked an appointment. I wanted to see him. So I went to their house and all of that as we were not gisting because she couldn't even say anything. So I have to cite examples of what happens, how people lost money and all of that. Unconsciously, somebody may just say, okay, because you want to see how she can help the family, she go into certain things and all of that. That was how I introduced her. This is what actually happened. And the man was like, well, thank God that she did tell him by herself, because if she had done that, in fact, a lot of things would have. He cannot even say what would have happened. But at the end of the day, we were able to settle it, and they settled. That was what happened, because I have to go to their house, you know. So we need to be very careful when we are doing this. What do you call? Because I told them, I give myself as an example that I cannot. There's no way I can try this, because I remember the day I told my auntie that if I should try something like this, you should know that by about 15 years of banking experience I had is a waste. That was what I told. I told my auntie that it's a waste. You should be disappointed in me if I'm going, I want to invest. Looking at the economy, what business will I do? Will I give somebody to do today? And you say tomorrow or at the end of the month, you give me 100% return. What is the business in this country? So that is one of my experiences.
But sir, before we go to Genika and Uncle K, why do you think people still keep falling into these schemes over and over? You remember No Specto?
Yes.
People keep coming back. In your opinion, why do you think people keep, and what kind of training would we give our employees, for example? Is this going to be part of financial literacy or financial intelligence training?
Financial literacy, literacy is the major thing that we need to do. And again, this thing is greed. This thing is greed. Because just look at first of all, we need to look at the economy. If we are teaching, look at the economy. Let people understand. Because even the banks that are doing business, making money, and all of that, how much return would they give you? For God's sake. So it's justice, it's financial literacy. That is what we need to do. And again, like I said, greed.
Great. Again, we are still just so that you are aware, we are still talking within the context of burnout, employee burnout. And what we are saying right now is that sometimes part of the things causing the employee burnout may not be the work itself. It may not be the organization itself. It may, for example, be the lifestyle, pattern, practices, domestic, personal of the employee. We'll go to Ginika now, then Uncle K. Ginika, you have the floor. Okay, let's go to Uncle K. Maybe Ginika is still trying to unmute. Uncle K, you have the floor, sir.
All right, thank you so much. Very, very germane and very, topical issue we are talking about here, this burnout. You also talked about, how, what things that causes burnout. I would have loved to ask our facilitator that this burnout of a thing, I think it often disguises as hard work in the workplace. You tend to think that, okay, I'm very hardworking. I'm a hardworking person. We need to know when to actually draw the line between I'm really hardworking, you see yourself as productive, you're on top of it, and when you're crossing into the burnout stage. So we hope that our facilitators will come back and address that. But as you talked about burnout and what could cause it, that you told a friend that you would have wished if he was the one playing ball rather than sitting behind the screen and watching ball. That is another very topical issue I really hope to talk about, because something happened recently. I'm talking about Saturday. I deliberately and intentionally signed off from football because it gives me hypertension when I watch live football. My heart will want to jump out of my mouth. And I'm like, some people are the one collecting this money. Me, I'm the one here giving myself pressure. So I stayed off it. Apparently, some clubs played on Saturday. And this thing I'm saying now is like, it happened through life in Lagos. A brother went to watch ball, and at the viewing center where they watch ball, banters happened. And he was bantering with the other guy and then turned to abuse. He didn't know that the other guy had gone outside, picked a bottle, broke the bottle, hid it behind him, right? And as the guy came back and said, "What did you say?" Before they know what was happening. The guy, unleashed that on him. We had to rush him to the hospital where he went undergone 2 surgeries to save his face, and he's still there as we speak. Those that know the story may know who I'm talking about. But this is just to tell us that, in as much as we're trying to, ease out stress and the burnout, let us just do it in moderation. I mean, football with the football, we can throw banters, and we shouldn't take it to the extreme, and we should, just try and do things in moderation and not go to the extreme. Burnout is really bad. I've had my fair share of it too. And nowadays I tend to, take things easy. I ask myself, when it's getting to that point, that will anybody die in the office if I don't do this now? And if the answer is nobody will die, my brother, man, I take it next day and I'm off. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that LD intervention. Thank you for chiming in. I absolutely enjoyed what you have shared, and thanks also to my brother Aliu for contributing. There was one hand up. We'd still like to take your contributions. I saw one hand up. Did you put your hands down intentionally? I'm trying to remember the person's. Then Ginika, if you are still able to unmute.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Good
It's
evening.
quite an interesting section. I mean, the whole burnout is more like wellness, and for each and every one of us, even as HR, to take care, because someone once said, it's not me, you, but someone once said, if a whole chief of staff can be replaced in one day, talk more of ourselves who are just ordinary citizens, right? So the whole slides on burnout were key. And basically, I raised my hands when you were asking about what the CBET meant, because I just heard an hour ago from a friend who is in Abeokuta that somebody just committed suicide, and it's been crazy because the lady that committed suicide is my friend's brother. So my friend had to call me in, to talk to the person, the survivor spirit. So I've been on that survivor spirit call for almost an hour trying to share my story of what I've been through and how I was able to, come out of all of it. But back to the whole thing you said about the football, the betting, and all. But personally, I don't encourage that. But most people will be like, if you don't take risks, how do you make money? How do you invest? I've never done all this MMM thing just because of fear of, the unknown. What if this goes wrong? But I've also seen some people cash out from it. If it's a wise decision, I honestly don't know. I think we have our section back, so let me pause here. Thank you,
All right,
sir.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for your input. Well appreciated. Thank you. Before we go back to Martha to continue the session, Tunde Malik Agbalaya, sir, you have the floor. Your hands were up.
Okay, Doctor, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And let me thank Madam Martha so far. I wanted to make my contribution after the whole section, but let me quickly make this input that the last person that spoke before not the last person, I think Mr. K, I don't know, you mentioned the name, talk about that it may not necessarily that the burnout we're talking about is within the system, the organization. Maybe it is lifestyle or what some of our employees are getting themselves involved. Of course, we know that, of course, burnout, it is getting too, like you said, exhausting. But my experience so far too has also, I've been able to understand that some of our employees too get themselves engaged in some of the things that ordinarily it will bring issues, to them. But some are even competing with themselves. Some want to follow what another employee from an organization, maybe they earn more than you, but they want to copy what they are doing. And at the end of the day, you find out that this guy, why are you behaving like this? You're always tired. Your mind is not here. And if you call them, cancel them, you now discover that, okay, this guy is going out of hand and is going beyond his capacity and capability in terms of maybe financially or otherwise. So just to add to that sometimes you need to do something in moderation and be very careful as an employee. You do not copy, stay within our line. And of course, we continue. The country is not easy, so we should not add additional issue to what we are facing presently. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for that contribution. So does any other person, let me go to the chat box. Do we have any questions so far?
Just continue and close out with the presentation matter.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so before I had a network issue, we talked on how to burnout, prevent the prevention, how to identify burnout. We spoke on resilience, and now we're talking about the HR's role in self-care. I touched on that a little bit. So it's very important for us to schedule that HR alone time. I talked about some apps you can use, as reminders, for drinking water, taking a breath and, reflecting. There's an app actually called Reflecting. It helps with that. Reflectly, rather. Even a milk app also helps with that, and setting boundaries, like I mentioned, like your life depends on it, and not like he mentioned, the previous contributor mentioned, sometimes this burnout is self-imposed, so learning, especially when you are a workaholic. In my own case, I'm a workaholic, so even when you tell me go home, even when I'm delegating a task, I want to stay beyond that 5, 6, 8 p.m., sometimes. So I had to learn how to set boundaries, by force, after I had a health scare, but we don't have to wait till we get to that point. Talked on resilience, the ability to recover. We talked on how to build a resilient team, how to normalize conversations around stress, on well-being, championing team bonding activities, and also how to recognize and celebrate progress. So back to our score, our assessment score on burnout. I'd like to look at that to see how we performed. Let me head over to the chat box. Okay. So basically, if your score is between 10 to 20, you are doing well, actually. So just keep taking care of yourself. And if your score is from 21 to 30, that's like a moderate level of burnout. So you need to like take a step back and make self-care
Martha,
a
Martha, you
priority.
may want to go back to the page where you showed the question so that people can connect what you are
Okay,
saying
let me
right
go
now.
back to that
Thank you.
page. Thank you, sir, for that. Okay. Okay, so this is our assessment for evaluation. Is your work emotionally exhausting on the scale of 0 to 5? Do you feel burnt out because of your work? Does your work frustrate you? Do you feel worn out, at the end of the working day? Are you exhausted in the morning at thought of another day at work? How do you feel, if that's during your working hour? Do you feel tired? Are you exhausted? And do you actually have enough energy for your family and friends during this leisure time? Because oftentimes this burnout, it may not even show in the workplace. In my own case, at the peak of burnout, I was promoted, so it did not even reflect in my performance. It didn't show in my behavior. There was no sign that I was burnt out. The only place that reflected burnout was this number 7, having enough energy for family and friends. Because when I come back, I'm just like, please, I need my space, or bringing work back home. That was a norm for me. Spending weekends, holidays, I'm just checking mail, sending mail 11 p.m. Mail that nobody sends me. I'm a workaholic. So it's very important. So this number 7 is what actually was an indicator of burnout for me. So if you are within a particular range, let me check our numbers in the chat box to know how many of us are actually burnt out so we can take the right measures. So if your score is within 10 to 20, like I mentioned earlier, you're doing well, you're on track. And if you're on 21 to 30, that's a moderate level of burnout. You need to like step back and do the needful. And if you're on 31, from 31 and above, that is high level of burnout. So you need like immediate intervention. And if you are from 41 to 50, that's extreme burnout. So how many of us are extremely burnt out? So even if you are burnt out, there is hope for you. You just need to do the needful. I'm checking at the chat box. Do we have people that scored 41 to 50? Okay, I don't know. I'm not seeing the previous charts to know the
So
numbers.
we don't have. So we can maybe
Okay.
just go to the closing comments and remarks and close out.
Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so does anyone have any questions?
So if you have questions,
Does
please raise
anyone
your
have
hands.
questions
If you have questions for our
or
facilitator,
contributions?
at least we've taken a good number of contributions, but if you still have one or two things to say, we're happy to hear your voice, or if you have questions to comment.
Okay, let me ask. So what is that one thing that you're going to stop doing? One thing that you're going to stop doing, another thing that you're going to start doing, and something that you just need to continue. I'd like to know, I'd like to hear from you. What is that one thing? What are you going to start doing?
While we are thinking about that, let's quickly take the 3 hands that are already up.
Okay. Okay.
You can stop sharing so that you'll be able to see the participants. So let's take Priska, Bukola, then Uncle K. You can also speak to Martha's immediate question if you choose. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, good evening, everyone in the house. Good evening, Martha.
Good evening.
Hi. Okay, so my network kept yanking me out of the call a couple of times. But I just wanted to ask, I think I'm actually at the moment experiencing burnout because I've been having like some serious brain fog for a long period of time. You did mention that burnout is um it's prone to is caused by prolonged stress and a lot of other things, right? And then you also mentioned the different stages. So I just wanted to ask you, um, after the last stage of burnout, does it get to a point where you start to have brain issues, or it gets to a point where you have to meet with a therapist or something? I don't know. Right now, my brain, my head is all foggy at the moment, but I don't know if you get my question right.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I get your question. If you get to that point, you need to see a therapist, a professional. It's very important So that way, at least it's a good thing that you've acknowledged that you're experiencing this, brain fog. And then you need to find out what is your how do you relax? What makes you relax? Is it by taking walks? Is it by listening to music? Is it by going for hangouts? So, for example, in my case, I went for a HR mentorship hangouts in Abuja last year. So that also helped me. So is it that you need to get off, just shut down, like maybe social media, for instance? You need that break. You need to walk. You need a walk. You need to sometimes exercise. I don't know. For me, exercise keeps me sane. You know, it keeps me sane. But nevertheless, if you need to talk with therapists, you need to talk with HR platforms to forums. That is also a very good way of, also is also very helpful. Having that space where you can rant, that safe space is very important. If you need to see a therapist, please go ahead. But first of all, identify what relaxes you. I don't know if that was helpful.
Okay, that was helpful. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, I think Uncle K has.
Oh yes. Welcome back, Martha.
Yeah, thank you
While
so
while
much.
the network can be off, I was talking about how very interesting and important this topic is, in the sense that I tend to believe, my personal opinion, my perspective though, I think that everyone will experience burnout at one time or the other. And if that is the case, then when you experience burnout, um, I tend to believe that burnout can camouflage as hard work. Okay. So when it disguises itself as hard work, how would you how would you be able to identify, or when would you be able to draw the line and say, okay, no, I think I'm crossing the boundary, because a lot of us tend to normalize what we call um he's a hard worker. He works well, he's diligent, he's committed, he's resilient, and all those adjectives to qualify you. And you know that you're gradually edging towards the burnout. I mean, we need to normalize closing early and all these things that we don't do. So how do you be able to draw the line or identify it when you're crossing the boundary between hard work and burnout? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. I would say I'm also guilty of that, of working, beyond the appropriate time frame, and as I mentioned, I'm a workaholic. So it's very difficult for me to even take breaks. So I would say you need to have people in your inner circle, that remind you, put you on checks to make you reflect. If you need to set reminders, reflect, so that you know when to, take that break. Let me put it that way, when to withdraw so you don't exceed your threshold. I don't know if you know, make delegate people that will hold you accountable. Let me put it that way, because that's what I did. I have people that in 2 weeks they asked me, have you? I had someone, my previous boss. She would tell me, "Martha, set alarm to take water." So if it means you using those apps I mentioned and having someone that will hold you accountable, please do that. I hope that helps, because that's what I'm doing. That's what I do. I get to sit down and ask myself, how did you do this week? I have people that call me to ask, have you taken a break? Have you actually gone on break? Because if you leave me, I'll just keep walking round the clock. It's so difficult for me to take breaks. So you need someone that will hold you accountable. You can use apps to put a check on you. I don't know if that is helpful.
Bukola, you have the floor. Bukola Messi, you have the floor.
Okay, I think someone else is raising up a hand.
Yeah.
Hello. Good
Hi.
evening. Good evening, everyone. Hi, Moka. All right. Thank you very much. You know, from the first time I saw this topic, I mentioned in the group chat that I really have to be part of this session. All right. So, thank you once again. So, my question is that how do we differentiate burnout and depression? Because I feel like the symptoms, insomnia, withdrawal, all of those that you mentioned, can also be symptoms of a depressed individual. And I'm saying this because, okay, I've experienced both and they seem similar. And in fact, I can also say that one leads to the other, kind of, but I don't know if burning out leads to depression or maybe depression leads to burning out, of course. And that's one. Secondly, how do I put this? Okay, yes. I also had an experience where bullying at work led to um a person being burnt out, in the sense that everything you do, your line manager sees it as it's not enough, and you want to put in the hard work to doing better and better and better, and before you know it, it resulted into burnout. So how do we differentiate maybe bullying, depression, and then burning out? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. That's a bit dicey. So I say burnout and depression, they are related. I haven't experienced depression, so I can't give you like a practical example, but I feel like at depression level, does it get to the point of wanting to take your life at depression level? I don't know if anybody wants to help us with that
Not
Okay.
because
really.
I must be honest,
Yeah,
Well,
I've
not
not
really.
experienced that.
so I would like to contribute there. I'd like
Okay,
to
sir.
contribute here. And thank you so much, Bukola Messi, for that question. Let me just quickly highlight a few differences, even though you are very correct when you mention that they could have similar symptoms or overlapping symptoms. Okay. So while burnout is caused by prolonged stress, overwork, lack of balance, or lack of control in a certain area of life, depression can be triggered by various factors, including, okay, genetics, brain, chemistry, life events, and trauma. You can see those slight differences. Then let me also speak a little about the symptoms. Burnout is typically characterized by emotional exhaustion, reduced performance, cynicism, and detachment from work or activities. And these are factors Martha had earlier mentioned. But depression, pay attention to this, is often persistent feeling of sadness. So you see that for burnout, you may not necessarily be sad. You'll just be what? Exhausted. But depression will have something around sadness, something around hopelessness. That's why Martha was asking that, for example, does it come with wanting to commit suicide, that kind of a thing? Because that's associated with hopelessness. Loss of interest in activities, changes in appetite or sleep, or sometimes suicidal thoughts. Okay. Burnout can develop over time, but symptoms may be alleviated with rest, self-care, and changes in stressful situation. While depression can be episodic or persistent and will require professional treatment. So what we are saying is, if you're burnout, so to speak, you think you have burnout and you have exercised some of the remedial solutions, suggestions profiled by all of us today, like they will say, if symptoms persist after this one, I won't say the number of days. So please go to your hospital, okay? Use your HMO. If you have this employee assisted program or assistance program, EAP, use it. They have therapy, psychologists. If you now need to see, if they want to treat you for clinical depression, then they can refer you at the hospital. But don't stay on it for too long, maybe weeks, months, then please, let's move on. I see some hands up. I don't know if they want to respond or react or share questions, but Ginika, you have the floor. Then we take Mercy, and we'll take Mercy. Then we wrap up.
was about to bring down my hand. You are just spot on what you said. So honestly, burnout, depression is more of a mental disorder, which can arise from various symptoms, from various causes. Why burnout is basically like more of an exhaustion, like something that comes out from work stress and all of it, as Mata has clearly stated. So, and like you also said, the depression comes with that prolonged level of sadness. Depression, when you are depressed, you are depressed. Burnout is not typically a mental disorder, it's just how will I put it, a physical exhaustion from which is mostly stress related. Yes, sir. That was what I wanted to add to
Okay.
what you said.
Thank you. Thank you. If anybody on this call has issues with depression and you need someone to talk to, you can talk to me or you can talk to Mata. And there's nothing to be ashamed of, please. All right.
Yeah,
Mercy,
doctor. Okay.
we'll
Okay,
come to
thank
you
you.
later. Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead,
Thank
Mercy.
you so much, sir, for this class today, this training today. Thank you so much, Martha. So I just wanted to add something. I also think that depression is spiritual because sometimes sometimes it can be spiritual. That's what I want to say. Because I had a friend who was depressed, really depressed to the extent that he committed suicide. And before he committed suicide, he he kept, he was withdrawn. He kept saying work, he's tired of the work, he's tired of work, he's tired of work and all that. That's all I could get from him. And then all of a sudden, one day, I just heard that he committed suicide. So sometimes I also feel it can be spiritual because the devil tends to, isolate the person and make the person withdraw the person, just make them feel worthless and all that. So I also feel that in as much as we should talk to people, we should also somehow pray about it, seek spiritual help. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much. That's why when you go for counseling and therapy, you get a whole package. When I say whole package, they engage and explore all options, and sometimes they apply multiple solutions in the right proportion. Very spot on. Thank you for your contribution. I think somebody wanted to speak. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Tunde.
Yeah, doctor. Yeah, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity again. Yeah, like I said, I wanted to speak after the whole section. This topic is very, very important, and thank you for the speaker, the presenter, Madam Mata. This is one topic that in Nigeria system we don't take it serious. Yeah. Hello.
We are with you, loud and clear.
Yeah. We don't, as some of our employers, they don't see the need to observe or to quickly check their employees when this guy is getting exhausted. This guy is what he's doing we quickly need to support this man. But I think as HR, we should also start to take that into cognizance to observe staff, because you will see staff that this guy is he's not getting himself again. He's exhausted. And like somebody said, the only remedy, and I think Mata too, I mean, the presenter too herself said it, the only remedy that we have over the years, Ghana, that is very important is break. I remember when I was still over there, there's a program that I got involved in, and in the healthcare. So this is how it was, the survey was done. They are not interested in those who are still on the job. They're interested in why are people getting out of that job in healthcare. So that's guided us to know that those that even in the job, it is because they don't have alternative for now. But those that left, they cannot go because they are stressed out. The level of the workload is heavy on them, and they need a break. I know over there they don't joke with break, and they have managers that will observe you that once you are getting beyond your threshold, of 36 or 39 hours, go for break, then you come back and refresh. Because some want to work and work and work again, and it is not advisable for any employee. So one of the remedies, go on break. And the break is not necessarily that it must be long, 2-3 days, go and refresh, get yourself, and come back. You'll be okay. For some people, they feel that because of, I don't know. Then number two, like you have all said, and doctor, you are spot on. There is sharp difference between, being burnout and depression. Like somebody said, depression is a mental state. Different is totally clearly and different from whatever. You will quickly know that this person is depressed, especially for men. When you see him not coordinated again, not himself again, oh, this guy is depressed, and you can quickly support the person. So it's a two different thing. But thank you very much for this opportunity, sir. That's just what I needed to add.
Thank you so much. That is all time will permit, so that we don't suffer burnout. Matter any closing remarks?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for your contributions. So, if in case anybody you need someone to talk with, I'm available. If you need someone to share maybe workouts, videos, if you need to lose weight, I can share tips with you. I can share meal plans if you're looking at losing weight to maintain
Martha, you're coming back. You're coming back.
Health.
We'll have a session on that matter. On a serious note, we have a session on these things you are talking about. We'll do a webinar on this. You will teach it. And ladies and gentlemen, you can unmute. Let's unmute and appreciate Martha. She has saved our life.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Martha.
Martha.
Thank you so much,
We love
Martha.
you. Thank you so much.
Brilliant topic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Martha.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.